You can level up however you want in Fresh Classic. Don't let anyone tell you how to level up. This time round, there's really no rush as the raids will not be available at launch. That being said, I'm going to show you how I level, because when I level up on a Fresh server, I like to maximise not only my XP per hour, but also my gold per hour and overall efficiency. And whether you want to follow my methods or not is entirely up to you. Mainly, this video is actually going to be about using the auction house properly like a smart businessman rather than being an idiot and just vendoring everything like every other guide will tell you to do, including all of my old pretty crappy guides. Yes, on a server launch, auction house prices are cheap, but usually they are better than the vendor value, and sometimes they are below the vendor value, which is also great because you can just buy it off the auction house and vendor it for free gold. You can use the add-on Auctioneer to search for items on the auction house that are up for less than the vendor value to quickly get a snatch. Also get Auctionator and the add-on Demodal so you can have the profession window open at the same time as the auction house. This is going to be very useful for later on in the video. By the way guys, I would really appreciate it if you did subscribe to the channel. You will get instant access to some subscriber only guides. For instance, I have a Classic WoW Ultimate Weapon Progression guide on there, and also a guide on how to push the game beyond ultra graphics. You just have to check out my channel page after you have subscribed and you'll see my subscriber only video. Now, first things first guys, you need to get out of the habit of vendoring stuff. You want to save every green item and even every white item to sell on the auction house. The only thing you should be vendoring is grey stuff, trash loot. You just never know how good the value of an item is until you check the auction house. And this definitely includes cloth. Yes, use cloth to level up your first aid. That is pretty important, particularly if you're playing something like a warrior that has bad efficiency while leveling. But anything left over when it comes to cloth should be put on the auction house if it yields more profit. If you also want, you can get skinning for more money while leveling. This is like the minimum effort, maximum reward method. There's many opportunities while leveling to skin other people's dead beasts who don't have skinning, and in the higher levels this will yield even more gold. The longer you wait after a server launch, obviously the prices are going to go up and up. So I'd recommend making a bankroll and wait until you're around about level 30 to start selling stuff on the auction house to afford your mount. But if you're a warlock or a paladin, then you can hold on to all the materials for a longer period of time to make even more gold from what you have acquired while leveling. Remember, you can actually leave items in the mailbox. It's basically free bank slots. Just send it to your bankroll and just leave it there if you run out of bank space. And obviously, send your bankroll all of the bags that you replace. Also, remember to give your bankroll disenchanting. Remember, in vanilla, you can disenchant anything at level 1 enchanting, so you can disenchant gear that you know won't sell well on the auction house because it has crap stats, into disenchanted materials to then put on the auction house later. At level 37, I would also recommend doing a hardcore grinding session to be able to afford your mount, and remember to be frugal when it comes to learning spells and only pick the absolute essential spells to save money while leveling up. Obviously, with a server launch, many other players will be doing the same thing. I would recommend just grinding any beasts that are above level 35, either in Badlands or Stranglethorn Vale, but Stranglethorn Vale, you probably only really want to do that on a PvE server, let's be honest. But the mobs like Ridge Hunters and Ridge Stalkers are pretty good ones to grind on. Now, if you can't grind on beasts, then you can just grind on humanoids. It's always better to just find a grinding location with the least competition. Humanoids have raw silver and cloth to sell on the auction house, or to craft into bandages to vendor, so humanoids aren't too bad, and they also very often drop other cool stuff. Now, rogues can also do pickpocketing, obviously, which is even better for more raw gold, and even more items like health potions that you can also put on the auction house. And if you do happen to find a hyperspawn location, then grind the hell out of that and take advantage of it while you can. You can take this even further and level professions while leveling. This will mean you level slower, but you will get to max level with a lot more gold, which you will have to farm anyway because you will need it for raid materials. Obviously, leveling gathering professions and crafting professions that require materials from gathering nodes will take the longest on a fresh launch. But if you go in level working and tailoring, it will be easier and you will grind XP while leveling those professions up anyway. Although since the servers are going to be very heavily layered, and if you play very early in the morning, you'll be surprised how fast you can actually level up your gathering professions because of how fast the dynamic respawns are. Also, if you're doing mining with another profession, you can just grind up your mining by smelting ores and then reselling the bars on the auction house for profit, so you're basically able to level up your mining for free. You obviously just have to be patient for all of those materials that you've created to eventually sell on the auction house. You really need to be ignoring profession leveling guides, to be honest, because these guys provide the quickest route to max level, which is likely going to result in you losing gold. You need to craft the recipes that yield a profit on the auction house, or at least break even when you vendor that item. Usually you do actually make a little silver, even from just vendoring what you craft, if you pick the correct thing to craft. Early on in a server's economy, it will also be way easier to make gold by simply just buying materials off the auction house, doing the craft, and then selling it back on the auction house. And this is why I recommended to get the add-on Auctionator, because what you do is you do a full scan of the auction house, and then in your profession window, you will see how much profit you can make with each craft. Like for instance here, I can make 20 silver profit by making elixirs of firepower. I usually put 3 of each craft that I'm going to sell on the auction house at all times, and I try to spread out as many items as I can by putting as many up as I can and keeping them up every single time. That way, every time I revisit a major city, I've always got some cash flow coming in. You're essentially setting up methods of passive income where you can make money while you're out in the world trying to level up your character, rather than you exclusively going out into the world killing mobs to kill stuff to make gold. Early on in the game, it's also very important to have as much bag space as possible, so be sure to keep your bags upgraded. It's always worth the investment because every time you fill your bags, you're essentially freezing your gold farm. Another great way to maximize the XP and gold while leveling is to maximize your dungeon runs, and you do this by getting the quests. Dungeon quests reward the most XP, usually have a raw money reward, or an item with very good vendor value, and even if you need the item, you're going to equip it, you will later vendor it when you upgrade it. Now, finding all of the quests for every dungeon can be a pain, but luckily the add-on Rested XP has a feature that when you run the add-on for the first time, you can select the dungeons you want to do and it automatically adds the correct quests to obtain for the dungeon, including all of the pre-quests, into your leveling route. So you don't even have to think about or stress over doing all of the pre-quests and researching where they all are. You can just keep following the blue arrow and following all the instructions on the add-on and all of the tips that it tells you to do. It also does have the most optimal leveling route refined over the past few years from the world record holding speed levelers for those people who do want to level just as fast as possible. You will definitely like all of the cool logout skips that you can take advantage of. What I usually do on a fresh server is I follow Rested XP's leveling guide because you may as well level up the most efficient route possible, right? And it's also great for getting all of the dungeon quests, but I also like to focus on making gold and doing some professions in the meantime. Everyone should level up using their preferred method, but in my humble opinion, this is the smartest way to level up because you're maximizing XP and gold, whereas grinding dungeons all the way to level 60 is probably one of the dumbest things you can do because you definitely won't be able to afford your mount at level 40. But sometimes you are just in the mood to have a brainless dungeon grinding session because it requires a lot less thinking than questing, and that's totally fine if you want to do that too. I will likely do it myself a little bit while leveling up also. But the main lesson of this video, guys, is to familiarise yourself using the auction house and take advantage of it as much as you can, and carry on this habit for the whole time you play Fresh Classic, because when you do it well enough, you will never even need to farm gold. And this is because you will be making more gold per hour from your time just playing the game normally. Let's say, for instance, you are farming instances for your pre-bis in dungeons. Well, if you don't have any professions leveled up and you normally just vendor stuff, you're going to be making a lot less gold, when you could be making a lot more gold by putting stuff on the auction house and flipping items you acquire in dungeons for even more money by crafting some kind of recipe with your professions. I will have a much more detailed guide on how to make gold without farming in the future, so stay tuned for that. But until then, my name is Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao.